On this episode of Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans, True Aussie Murders Caffeinated, join me as I take a deep dive into the abduction, sexual assault and murder of 9-year-old schoolgirl Samantha Knight, the crime that broke Australia's heart and exposed a pedophile living in our community. Samantha Knight, little girl lost, coming up, so don't go away. And trigger warning, guys, this episode talks about child sexual assault, kidnap and murder, so listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone and welcome to Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans, True Aussie Murders Caffeinated. I am your host Belinda Brady and welcome guys, welcome to episode 18. Wowzers, we're nearly there guys, we're nearly in the 20s and today's episode is titled Samantha Knight, Little Girl Lost. Now straight off the bat, I will say this episode discusses the abduction, sexual assault and murder of a child and children. If this is upsetting to you, please, you do not have to listen. Listener discretion is advised. And I will also say my sources straight out. My sources for this episode is 9news.com.au, the Australian Missing Persons Register.com, theguardian.com, theage.com.au, 9now.9.com.au, dailymail.co.uk, New Zealand nzherald.co.nz, and dailymail.co.au. And what am I drinking, guys? Well, I've had a bit of a busy morning and I've also been so tired. I could literally be a dead man sleeping, dead man walking, however you want to say it. So I've been out and about this morning, so I'm actually sipping on a 7-Eleven coffee and I don't mind them. So don't at me. I like my 7-Eleven coffees. They're strong but not overly strong, and yeah, they're not bad. I do enjoy them quite a bit. Now, call out guys, I just want to say a big thank you to, I've had a few listeners reach out to me, so that is great. I love hearing from you guys. And you know, if you are enjoying this show, please tell people, please share it, please share me on socials, share me via vocal, tell your friends, tell your neighbours, tell your garbage man, tell your colleagues. I would absolutely so appreciate it. And I'm just having a look at my stats, my locations, and I've got some people from some really cool places listening. I've got someone from Rotterdam in South Holland. Hello to you in South Holland. I've also got someone from Amsterdam in North Holland. Hello to you too. And I've also got a listener from Santa Fe in New Mexico. And also a shout out to Virginia Beach in Virginia. So thanks guys for listening. I really love seeing where you are all over the world. I'm really loving seeing where you guys are from. And if you do want a shout out from me, a personalised shout out, please subscribe and I will more than happily do that for you. And I'm also looking at doing bonus episodes for subscribers as well. So if that's something you're interested in, you know, please subscribe and I'll work out exactly what I'll be doing bonus episodes about and I'll let you guys all know. But I am thinking somewhere along the line of Australian ghost stories because that is absolutely my jam. So if that's something you would like to hear, please let me know. And I'm also going to put a little disclaimer also about this episode because it does talk about children's abduction and sexual assault and murder. If anyone out there needs any help, there is help available. Kids Helpline on 1-800-555-1800 or Respect on 1-800-737-732. And if you are not in Australia, please look up the numbers that are available in your country and please get the help that you need. There are people there that care about you and help you. So if you are needing help, please reach out. Okay, today's episode takes us to the Sydney suburb of Bondi in August 1986 and the disappearance of a 9-year-old schoolgirl, Samantha Knight, who just seemingly vanished into thin air. And despite the state of New South Wales and the whole country looking for her, she never turned up, and hope turned to despair as the dark realization set in that she just wasn't coming home. Now, Samantha's mother, Tess Knight, and her father never gave up hope, but it would be 16 long years before a man confessed to her murder and would smash the innocence that Australia had up until that point and bring a hidden but all too real monster into our everyday lives. So please settle in, get your favourite drink, get yourself warm, get yourself cool, get yourself comfy, and lend me your ears. And I will say again, I am about to discuss child sexual assault, kidnap and murder. So if this does upset you, listener discretion is advised. Okay, Australia 1986 was a different time, and I would know this era was my childhood, and I lived it. You know, I was growing up in the 80s, and we rode bikes all over, would walk blocks to visit our friends or swim in their pool, and would spend the whole day of a weekend hanging out, and we only came home when it got dark. Mums couldn't find us via iPhones. So when we were out, and generally they had no clue. They thought we were with friends, or they knew we were with friends, but they had generally no idea where we were. And our weekends were spent doing just that, hanging with friends or just hanging out and riding our bikes. And after school was no different. Being home was just not an option when you had friends to see and freedom to explore, bikes to ride, water parks to visit, etc., etc. And for 9-year-old Samantha Knight, her experience was no different to mine. She was only a year older than me when she went missing, and from what I can gather, she too loved being out and about and seeing her friends. Samantha Knight was a blonde-haired, green-eyed, bubbly 9-year-old girl with a smile that would light up the room. Samantha was the daughter of Tess Knight and Peter Omega, and she was born on the 25th of March 1977. Now, the family initially lived in Manly, a suburb in New South Wales, but when Tess and Peter divorced, Tess and Samantha moved to Bronte, New South Wales, a neighbouring suburb of Bondi Beach, and shortly after they moved to Bondi Beach, and by 1986 they had moved into a flat in Imperial Avenue, Bondi. Samantha often got home from school before her mother, so when Tess got home on the afternoon of August 19, 1986, and saw the only sign that her daughter had been home was a half-eaten sandwich left on the table, she wasn't too concerned. Samantha was often out and about visiting her friends who lived in the same building as them, and she was used to being on her own until her mum got home, so she either went to visit friends or sometimes popped down to the shops. But when Tess checked in with her neighbours and they told her they actually hadn't seen Samantha at all that afternoon, immediate panic set in. At a loss to where her daughter could be, Tess called the police and reported her daughter missing. The following day, volunteers, many of whom didn't even know Samantha or her parents, helped search for the little girl, and missing persons posters were plastered all over Bondi Beach on every possible telegraph pole in neighbouring suburbs, and her image was shipped all around the country to every media outlet. Like I said, every telegraph pole had a poster of Samantha and her infectious smile on it with the words missing, and every media outlet in the country went into overdrive as they searched for her. Everyone wanted to find Samantha and bring her home. Now, in the early days, several witnesses came forward saying they had seen Samantha walking the streets of Bondi in her school uniform, and it was thought that she had left home to go to the shops but somehow had lost her keys while she was out. So this theory was also backed up when it was discovered she had gone into a pharmacy and bought a toothbrush. But where did she go after? And if she had lost her house keys, why didn't she just go to one of her friends' places in her building and wait for her mum to get home? I mean, Samantha wouldn't have known. I mean, Samantha did this a lot. She would have known her mum wasn't too far away. Now, police also received several phone calls from people claiming they saw Samantha that night, but every lead, every claim came to a dead end. it was like Samantha has simply vanished into thin air, and with no solid leads or arrests or suspects, and no real clue as to what had actually happened to Samantha, the case went cold. And for Peter and Tess, Samantha's parents, the reality that their little girl was missing was their new living everyday nightmare. And it would be 16 years before they and Australia got an answer as to just what had happened to Samantha Knight that day. And I remember when I was in school, it was a mystery, shrouded in mystery. No one knew what had happened to this little girl. She had just vanished. Michael Guider was born on the 20th of October 1950 in Melbourne, Victoria. He and his mother moved to Sydney in 1952, and in 1953 his brother Tim was born, the result of a relationship with an army cook who was an alcoholic. Michael claimed he was abused by his mother, a family friend and a stranger for money. Now, the method in which Michael was allegedly abused, and guys, please remember this for later on, the method that apparently was used on Michael was he would be loaded up into a car, drugged, and taken on an outing where the abuse would then take place. Michael and his brother Tim spent time in institutions as their mother couldn't care for them, and Michael also claimed to be raped by several other boys during this time at these institutions. Now, by the 70s, Michael had a rap sheet of various offences, one being he set fire to the shop of an ex-girlfriend. And it was around this time that Michael allegedly became an abuser, where he would sexually assault younger boys, just like what had happened to him. Now, if we thought that this was his trauma talking, or he was somehow working through his trauma, we thought wrong, because by the time he was an adult, Michael was a true predator. He was a pedophile to the absolute core. Now, Michael found his victims with ease as he worked as a gardener in Sydney's Royal North Shore Hospital, which is located in a Sydney suburb called St Leonard's, and he would befriend mothers he met during his workday, many who were taking part in the hospital's methadone program. And he would take advantage of their vulnerability and snake his way into their lives. And in true predator style, he would often befriend these families, their friends, and their children. And once he felt that he could, and once he felt these families were comfortable with him, he would offer to babysit the kids. So, mum and dad could have a break, or mum could have a break. And he would take these children to his home, where he would drug them with a drug called Normanson, and then he would abuse them. Michael took this one step further. When he was abusing these children, he would also take photos of them in various stages of undress. Now, as the children in question were drugged and had no real recollection of the abuse, he went undetected for many, many years. And all these poor children knew was they went to, Michael's house, Uncle Michael, and woke up sometime later, no recollection of what had happened. And a story a parent could easily dismiss as a child, perhaps not paying too much attention to what was going on, or the child simply just falling asleep from exhaustion when he or she got there. And Michael had access to plenty of children. As the plump guy with the welcoming smile, he looked like he would not hurt a fly, and he had no shortage of babysitting jobs. So these poor parents of Bondi had absolutely no clue about the monster that they had let into their lives. And it wasn't until 1996, 10 years after Samantha Knight went missing, that two 7-year-old girls got up the courage to tell their parents about the abuse they had suffered at the hands of Michael. One of them, I believe two of them, had varying accounts of what had happened, varying memories, and decided to speak up. And it was the first time such an allegation was made against Michael, but police took it seriously. Now, in February 1996, police searched his home and what they found was nothing short of disturbing. Police discovered a mountain of child pornography, photos of children and children's underwear in his shed. And on February 6, 1996, he was arrested and charged with sexually assaulting these two girls, a claim he denied, though he was able to name most of the children in the photos that he had in his possession. Now, during questioning, Michael was asked about Samantha because he was around Bondi at this time, and Michael claimed, I've met her once or twice, and he had kept a scrapbook filled with newspaper clippings about her disappearance out of interest, but that was all. That's all he knew about the girl. Now, the investigation concluded in September of that year, and Michael was found guilty of 60 offences of sexually abusing 9 girls and 2 boys over a 15-year period, and was sentenced to a, in my opinion, not long enough, 16-year jail term. Now, with Michael behind bars, police were still collecting evidence on him, and a 1998 search of a unit once rented by Michael turned up a truly disturbing find. They found the scrapbook Michael had put together about Sam, along with photos of 2 of her friends, and along with photos of Samantha herself. All photos found of these girls, every single photo, showed them to be in various stages of undress. Now, police tracked down the 2 girls in the photos who were them around 22 years old at this stage, who had absolutely no idea they had even been abused. They had no idea any of this had taken place until they were shown the photos that their trusted babysitter had taken of them. I mean, could you imagine? You're just cruising through life, and then all of a sudden the police are like, hey, this is you. You've been sexually abused, and you have no recollection of it. Like, my God, I couldn't even begin to imagine. Michael was then charged with 2 more counts of a sexual assault and had another 12 years slapped on his sentence, which equal to only about 6.5 years jail time for each of those girls he abused. Now, before he was arrested, Michael had shown an interest in Aboriginal or First Nations, as we also call them, heritage, and spent a lot of time as a volunteer searching and documenting culturally significant sites around Sydney with other volunteers. Now, on one of these expeditions, Michael mentioned he knew Samantha Knight and her mother Tess, and was often drawn to Bondi where she disappeared. Now, when that person shared that information with a friend, a Sydney school teacher called Denise Hoffman, who had worked with Michael before, it just didn't sit right with her, so she told police and began paying Michael visits in jail in the hope of prying more info out of him. But Michael caught on to what Denise was playing at and said absolutely nothing. And to add to her frustrations, the police didn't take her seriously at that time. So it would be years before they did and start asking Michael about Sam themselves. But he still wouldn't talk. He still wouldn't budge. But by this stage, the police was certain that the convicted pedophile with more than 60 charges against him was the man who was responsible for one of the highest profile missing persons cases and the murder of 9-year-old Sam Knight. He was right under their noses this whole time. Now they just needed him to confess it. So they let Denise continue to visit him, but he would not budge. But they persevered, and in the end, it was thanks to a prisoner only known as Witness O, who was disgusted by his cellmate bragging about the kids that he had hurt, and Michael's own brother Tim turning informant, that brought about a confession from Michael. Michael confessed that on the afternoon he had taken Sam, that August afternoon, he had the intention of drugging and sexually assaulting her as he had done before. Now, he drugged her with a drug called Normicin. Now, I did mention that earlier on, and Normicin is a temazepam, and I hope I have pronounced that right. And it is used for treating insomnia, with side effects generally being feeling drowsy and lightheaded. So he picked Sam up, put her in his car, and took her home and drugged her and left to go to the shops real quick. He left to go real quick, but when he came back, Samantha was dead on his couch. He had given the young girl too much of the drug and she had died as a result of it. So he then loaded Sam into his car and drove to Kirribilli, a nearby suburb, and to the Royal Yacht Squadron grounds where he worked as a gardener. He had easy access to the place and no one was around. So he chose a spot near a gum tree and dug a grave where he then put the young girl. He covered her up and that was it. He was done. He was out of there by dawn and simply got on with his life. So he would have seen Samantha's frantic parents pleading for her safe return, for her to come home. He would have seen the media, the police, begging people for information. All that time he knew exactly what happened to her and he just got on with his life. But on the 7th of June 2001, Michael Guyder was charged with the manslaughter of Samantha Knight and he was sentenced to an extra 17 years with a non-parole period of 12. Now, Samantha's family were desperate to find where he had put their girl, as were the police, as was the country, and they began digging in the garden where Michael said he had buried Sam, and despite cavalier dogs signalling that they had found something, that they had picked up a scent in the dirt, no body was found, and police learned that when work had started on building an undercover car park in 1998 in the gardens, Michael had kicked up a stink claiming they were going to ruin all his hard work, all the efforts he had put into these beautiful gardens, and police believe that the builders may have unknowingly removed Samantha's remains during the build. Now, Michael didn't care about the gardens. He was too worried about them discovering Samantha. And it's now believed that she might have been disturbed and moved when they built that car park. Now, her mother Tess said at the time, quote, "At least it's a beautiful spot. I'm glad this has meant a closure for the three wonderful detectives, Neil, Darren and Steve, who have been kind and who have done a brilliant investigation." Now, Samantha's family might have thought their ordeal ended there, but it didn't, because they soon learned that in 2019, Michael was up for parole. Now, Tess was horrified and spoke out against his release, saying she thought about her daughter's final moments constantly, the final moments that Michael was responsible for. Tess said, quote, "Did she struggle? Where did he take her? Was it a long drive? Did she call for me as she died? What did she say? Did she wonder why I wasn't there to help her? Did she say, I want mummy? Did she tell him, I want to go home?" This man has been a dangerous, serious sexual predator of children. Whatever remorse he may show, it was not enough to change his behaviour in the past and is not enough for the future. Please don't release this man into the community. But it wasn't just Samantha's family. Protesting. Other victims of Michael also spoke out. One victim, Chantel Daly, whose testimony originally helped put Michael in jail, spoke out saying, quote, "As an adult, I'm not scared of my abuser, but the 6-year-old girl inside of me is terrified. I am still scared of him and I hate that because I still see him as this strong, scary person who had all this power over me as a child." Another victim, Lisa Giles, who waived her right to be anonymous in court, also spoke out urging the judge to reconsider. She said he loved to see the innocence of children taken from their faces. Quote, "He has no empathy. He is driven by the desire to fulfill the physical urge. We were not always sedated. Sometimes we were awake and aware. I live with complex PTSD. It's a form of imprisonment. He's remorseless and self-righteous." But the powerful words of those who knew the monster Michael is, and a New South Wales government bid to keep him behind bars, didn't help. And in September 2019, he was released on bail. His bail conditions were subject to a 5-year extended supervision and 24/7 ankle bracelet monitoring. The community and the Knight family were absolutely outraged, with Tess Knight saying, quote, "I am not disappointed, I am angry." Michael's own brother Tim spoke out in disgust, saying, quote, "He looks like the personification of evil, and he is. He hasn't changed. If anything, he's worse. What's going to happen if he does kill another child? Whose child is it going to be?" Michael was released into the community, address withheld, so families around him had no idea there was a pedophile and killer in amongst them, which caused further outrage. Michael also cut off contact with anyone from his past, as to stop them from alerting anyone in his new life of his real identity. But it wasn't long before Michael proved them right, because leopards never change their spots. And when detectives paid him a surprise visit in September 2022, which is a condition of his parole, they found child pornography on his phone, and he was promptly rearrested and taken back to jail. Now, fellow residents who lived in the same housing complex as him and had no idea who he was were horrified to learn who he really was, with many saying he kept to himself and never, ever let anyone in his apartment. Michael was sentenced to 3 years jail for failing to comply with an extended supervision order, but as fate would have it, he wasn't in there for long, because Michael Guida, the man who drugged, sexually assaulted so many children and killed 9-year-old Samantha Knight in the exact same way, died in Prince of Wales Hospital in Sydney on the 25th of September 2024 with no cause of death given. He went to his grave never revealing where he had truly buried Sam. He was 73 years old. To this day, Samantha Knight's body has still not been found. Samantha's father, Peter, has come out and said that he likes to think Samantha is in the soil and that she is all around us, and he takes a small comfort in that. Now, we miss a lot of things about the 80s. We miss the music, the hair, hell, even the fashion. But what we don't miss is the lack of education or awareness of the predatory monsters that insert themselves into our lives only with the intention of hurting our kids. Now, I had never heard the word pedophile when I was a kid. I had absolutely no idea what one was. I had no idea they even existed. But they did, and now we know about them and we educate our kids and the community about them. And I think that is one thing that we can all agree can stay in the 80s, is that lack of awareness and that lack of education. If someone comes into your life, a stranger, and seems too good to be true, especially when it comes to your children, they probably are. Keep your kids at arm's length, guys, and be wary of anyone who somehow just magically inserts himself into your world. Now, the pedophile's playground is getting smaller, and we are thankful for that, as we are more aware of them and the tricks and the tactics they use than we have ever been. Now, Michael was aware of the growing education around people like him, because he cut off, when he was released from jail, he cut off contact with anyone from his past, as to stop them from alerting anyone in his brand new life to his real identity. So remember that. The lengths these people will go to get what they want and do what they want to do knows no bounds. So please educate yourselves and educate your children about the very real monster that walks among us, and that is pedophiles. And I do hope that Samantha Knight's mother Tess and her father Peter are able to remember their beautiful girl with love and joy in their hearts, and know that Australia, all these years later, and the world is still behind them and still just is wrapping them in a great big hug. And that's it, guys. Another episode of Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans, True Aussie Murders, Samantha Knight, Little Girl Lost, done and dusted. I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode, and I've also hope you're able to take something away from that. And please be aware of everything that is going on around you, especially with children, especially with new people coming into your life. Please, if that is anything that you can take away from this horrible, horrible, horrible crime. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate you guys. And if you are enjoying these episodes, again, I will call out, please let everyone you know, friends, neighbors, co-workers, garbage men, your Amazon delivery driver, whoever and whenever. I would love for you to share me out there. So please, I am on TikTok. Come find me. You can follow me on Spotify. I believe you can leave a comment on this podcast now on Spotify. You can buy me a coffee. You can send me fan mail. There is plenty of ways you can get in touch with me if you want to, and I would love to hear from you all. And as always, guys, thank you so much for listening. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. You are all absolute rock stars. And until next time, guys, stay safe, stay cool, and stay caffeinated. I will catch you all later.